Welcome to the Pirate Broadcast, where we interview interesting people doing interesting things, where you can expand your connections, your community. Kindness is cool and smiles are free. And let's get this party started. And it's a great day for the Pirate Broadcast, and we're here again, and we're going to have a great Wednesday. And if you're listening to this in the morning, evening, or afternoon, like Ross here, we're going to enjoy the conversation, highlight a few things, and talk about branding and how you can stop being boring and how you can start communicating with your audience. Ross, good day. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. And I've just realized we've got Russ and Ross, which seems to be kind of working very well here. So that's exciting.
I used to have a podcast called the R&R Business Show, and it was because Ronnie and Russ was on the show, and we had a great time. But I want to talk a little bit about branding, because that's been your passion for a number of years. And I love creating content for brands. I love creating, the element and the instrument that communicates that thing. And before the show, we were talking about how to stop being so damn boring, and how do we communicate in a way that people are interested in talking to us. And so I wanted to kind of riff on that idea a little bit. So give us, for the pirates that may not know you yet, kind of give us a snapshot of who Ross is and what you're up to today.
Cool, thank you. Snapshots. I mean, this is a difficult question. So I guess right now my favorite thing is that I'm a father of a 3.5-year-old Sebastian. So I get to play with him with reckless abandon, and curiosity is sort of my superpower. So he feels that. For money, I'm the founder and owner of a branding company called Nicework. We based in Johannesburg and Cape Town in South Africa, and we help brands to get people to care about them. And then part of the things that I do to keep my curiosity going, I run 2 podcasts. I've got one for Nicework called One More Question, which is all about understanding brands and what people think about them and how they work. And the other one is called Radio, which is for the Entrepreneurs Organization in MEPA. And those are just stories of businesses and business owners, how they came about doing what they were doing, their journeys, how they got there, and the things they've learned along the way. And then a sort of recent addition to my quiver is COVID sort of taught me that I have a passion for education. So I've been changing the products in my business, or how we deliver the work that we do in our business. And I've been spending a lot of time doing sort of facilitated sessions, and I speak on these topics because, like, I believe it's part of my purpose to teach people how to do this better, because I don't think it's difficult. I think most people have just learned the wrong things.
Do you think that we're living in a day and age where people are just skimming across the top and not putting any deep thought into how they're communicating?
Definitely. I think, I was actually talking about this just before we hit go live is, people say that attention's dwindling. And I don't believe that, because I know almost everyone I know, when the new Game of Thrones season came out, they stayed up for 2.5 days straight, without showering, without going to work, and they watched that entire thing from beginning to end. So if you tell me that attention's dying, I don't agree. Like, people binge watch stuff all the time, and they binge consume things. And when a book comes out that you love, you read it from cover to cover, you almost find an excuse to sneak out of the room. I think what's dwindling is quality stories and quality narratives that, and kind of Facebook and Google and these things have enabled this amazing kind of data flow, which is quite powerful and can be linked to transactional sort of things. But the net result of that is people are almost so obsessed with the data that they forget that we are ultimately humans talking to humans. And nobody likes the guy who every time you see them, he tries to sell you something. Like nobody wants to spend time with that guy. And if most of the brands out there are running around going, me, 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 like, look at me. And, I've got a million people coming at me. So I just put up a filter. And that's what people, I think, are perceiving as a lack of attention. But there are brands that are doing amazing things that are getting people to engage in their content, to engage in their community. I mean, there's a brand called Instant Pot. They do, it's like a pressure cooker and a rice cooker all in one, and they now have an air fryer. There's a Facebook community of 2.9 million, and they call themselves this potheads. And these potheads,
I'm a pothead.
different kind of pothead. And there's more than 2.9 million of those. So these people share recipes and tips and tricks around this product that they are absolutely obsessed with. And the brand has done this amazing kind of job of curating these people and feeding them and giving them first access to products and inviting them to events, and they're leveraging this relationship that they formed. And this is like having a relationship with your kettle on Facebook. It's almost bizarre that it exists, and yet somebody will put a post on this Facebook group and it'll get between 400 and 2,000 replies. There's brands that are spending tens of thousands of dollars a week to get, like, just to scrape anywhere near to that. And Instant Pot is getting it all for nothing. But it's because they created an amazing product, and the owner, if you go and read his story, like he was passionate because he was, he had all of these machines. If you go to Asia, the kitchens are filled with these like single-use machines. So like the rice cooker and the bun steamer and and he was just like, why do we have to have all of these things? Can't it all be in one? And he created this product, and he scratched on some human nerve, that people who saw this product were like, I have to have it. And then once they got it, his initial thought was only to hear. They elevated it through their own sort of tinkering, up to a place where there's people kind of making the product better and giving other people advice on how to use it without them kind of doing that. And it's almost like they are become these like unpaid ambassadors for this brand. And the only reason they're doing it is because they love the product and the company and the way that company's treated them so much that they're willing to put in that time and that energy and that effort in an almost unlimited way.
And it's almost as if the community is powered by curiosity. Because like, what service, what product, what recipe can I make to contribute to this community? Because everybody's coming back, and it's the organic engagement, and then the curiosity feeding that curation. It sounds like.
Yes, and I think a lot of brands would try and stop this. I mean, I listened to a story about there's a thing called LinkedIn Live, which was started by a woman in Australia, and she had been in a big city in Australia. She just had a child, and she moved to a smaller city in Australia. And she was like, well, I'm kind of going back out into the business world. I want some connections. I want to kind of reach out, and I don't really know how to do this. And because she was in a small town, it wasn't like there were other things like this that she could just go and attend. So she came up with this idea. She was like, I'm going to do this kind of get together where professionals from my area on LinkedIn are going to meet at a place and just chat with each other.
Yeah.
And she put this idea out there into the world, and a guy in London and another guy somewhere in Europe picked up on it, and they were like, can we do one too? And she was like, yeah, of course. And over a sort of 3-year period, this thing exploded. So suddenly LinkedIn Live there were like 700 events happening every week around the world of people on LinkedIn getting together and kind of connecting. And interestingly, at the time, LinkedIn was way more of a like kind of recruiter's tool. So it was a tool you would go to when you switched jobs or were looking for a job. And if you weren't switching jobs or weren't looking for a job, you were just never on LinkedIn. So you were just never there. So it was this like weird kind of almost like a poster of a human, but no interaction. And LinkedIn Live was one of the things that started to create this sort of movement. But now what Microsoft did that Instant Pot didn't is they tried to clamp down on this. They were like, this thing's a brand, like you've got our brand here. They went and they trademarked all the names and they used all their lawyers and all their money to kind of like lock this thing down.
Yeah.
And ostensibly what happened is LinkedIn Live died because the people who were organizing it suddenly felt oppressed by this brand that hadn't given them permission to do this thing, even though they were, and it was adding value to the company. So LinkedIn Live is kind of like dissolved and died this death. And I think there's a lesson here that when you start engaging with people as a company, when you start putting out things into the world, you need to be ready and excited when people do things back. Like we don't live in a world where we can control everything that that the world does anymore. Those days are long behind us. And I think if we want to keep growing and keep thriving in this environment, we need to almost embrace that kind of naturalness that happens when people pick up something and love it and drive it forward.
I really have to amplify what you just suggested, because I've been involved in LinkedIn Live. I've participated, I've contributed to, and I've actually done LinkedIn Live pop-ups during the pandemic where we did it online, and we did not the same thing. However, it was slightly different. And I actually registered the domain, a couple of domains that were very similar to that. And immediately I got a notification for cease and desist.
Yeah.
It's like, this is too confusing to the LinkedIn brand. You cannot use it. You cannot, expand on this. And I've been on LinkedIn for years. I've been on since 2005, and I've always used it for, building relationships and connections. And that's what the Pirate Broadcast is all about, is highlighting people in the community doing some great work. And I work really hard to highlight people on LinkedIn. And yet I still sense that there's limitations about what can be accomplished through the platform. And it would be really nice to allow more organic, communication and collaboration and, community around that as well.
Well, I think, I don't know, but I can sort of hypothesize why this is happening. But the first thing, I just want to point out how sort of crazy this is. And one thing, there's a marketing team at Microsoft who's engaging, Wyden Kennedy or, some other massive agency going, what we need is we need people to be engaging on LinkedIn and creating community around it. And, and they're going, when we've got $18 million to spend in the next 6 months to get this to happen, and they kind of shooting off in that direction. Then there's the kind of legal department and the risk department at Microsoft, which has found a community on LinkedIn creating engagement and driving platform growth. And they're going, whoa. We didn't own this. We didn't create this. We didn't mandate this. We didn't stamp this with our set of brand principles, which are so narrow that they don't allow anyone to achieve anything of meaning. So we're going to stamp it out. You got a cease and desist letter for doing what the platform is designed to do, for connecting people and bringing them together in a professional environment. So it's kind of insane. And I think it's happened because, I think there's almost like in my head, two kinds of organizations that are existing at the moment. There's organizations who are clear on their purpose, and some people call that a mission, some people call that a vision, some people call that a founding statement, but they're clear on what dent they want to make in the world. And it's not about them. It's about that dent that they are trying to make. So when other people jump on and take some of the glory maybe, or the brand or the fame or whatever, it doesn't matter. They are happy because it's about solving that problem. It's not about us being the biggest dog in the room, or us being the most known, or the one to kind of do it.
Right.
So there are these purpose-driven organizations, and then there's other organizations that haven't quite figured this out yet, and they are still operating in a slightly older mindset, which is sort of, like divide and conquer, profit above all else. We'll use our legal team as hard as we use our kind of budget, and we'll shut down our competitors. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of like this divide that I'm seeing happen. And I think brands that are truly built on that organizational purpose are more able to allow other people to collaborate with them. They're more able to allow things to sort of happen in a natural way and embrace it, because it's ultimately that purpose or that mission or that vision coming to life. It's just not being done by you and your team. It's being done by an army of human beings who kind of engage it. Like, imagine YouTube didn't want people creating communities around their YouTube channels. It just, the whole platform would dissolve immediately, because
it would
YouTube
evaporate.
Exactly. So it's about like it's not like that Google has to win and Ross Drakes has to fail, which is almost like how Microsoft is seeing this LinkedIn Live thing. They're like, well, if Ross Drakes does well on our platform, then our platform does better, and ultimately Google will make more money than I will. But because they don't just have a Ross Drakes, they have 27 million people with channels or whatever, kind of building these audiences.
Yeah.
And I think you've seen how Microsoft has shown again how bad they are, because they bought all of those people. They bought people like Ninja and they pulled them across onto their platform, and then they shut it down. So all of them were left stranded. They were like, you made me.
I don't want any competition. I'm going to buy you and then kill you.
Shut you down. So
yeah. Hey, speaking of community, I wanted to give a shout out to a couple of pirates in the community. Russ Hedge, good morning, Russ and Ross. And he says, great morning to be a pirate. Absolutely. Russ has a live show on LinkedIn and around the community as well. Lewis, good morning, Ross and Russ in the groovy Los Angeles. Martin is here. He's saying, hey, greetings from Nairobi. Thank you so much. Howard Kaufman, curious on how you would define what a brand is. Oh, that's a great question. I like that question, Howard. Howard actually has a great product that I love and endorse. It's ORL. It's a mouth care product that is all natural and doesn't contain any toxic chemicals that are harmful to the body. And so that's awesome. And I'll come back to that. Lewis, absolutely. Martin has a couple of things. Ken from Malta, he's here today. Fantastic. Nice. Martin's here. For them, is about being the biggest dog in the room always. He's talking about Microsoft, I guess.
True story.
Yeah. So going back to Howard's question, what is a brand?
Well, so I can tackle this question from so many different angles, because I've interviewed about 50 people and got many sort of takes on it. But my favorite one, I'm very interested in what makes people kind of emotionally connect to things. And the job of a brand for me is to make people care. That's what the job of a brand is to get them to feel something, to attach importance to a product, a service, a person, or whatever. That's what it's supposed to do. But what a brand ultimately is comes from this, it's one of our sort of human traits, which is it's a collective hallucination. We've all agreed that this thing exists, but it doesn't. And we've all agreed that this thing has value when, if you actually look at it, it doesn't, but it does, because we've all agreed that it does. So I think a brand is a collection of associations that a group of people make around a product or a service, and it becomes a place in which they can store those associations. And those could be life experiences, those could be how it makes you feel, those could be what it says about you and your status in society, it could be what it says about your values as a human being, it could be like a myriad of different things. But I see brands are the vehicle that companies can use to reach an audience. The bridge between a company and a human is a brand. And if you get that right, you create an emotional connection between an organization and an individual. And that is a truly powerful thing, because if you stick to the almost the agreement of what that means, you can create value for both the company and for the individual, and that can create a lifelong sort of connection in whatever sense. And that might be something that they spend a lot of money over their lifetime. It might be something that they do just once, but they still have this amazing sort of experience of it. Sorry, go Russ.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, it's interesting how, because you can have a brand, and what comes to mind is like Coke versus Red Bull. They're both drinks and they're both brands. However, they attack and attract their audience in a completely different way. Red Bull is this not so tasty drink that has a lot of adrenaline attached to it. And Coke is just a long standard, Coke is just like a piece of the architecture of today's communities and today's, organizations. And it's just like there. So I'm thinking of a new brand, like new companies that come out and how they can actually build a community around that. How do they activate community like Instapot does?
Well, I mean, community is a double-edged sword. So I don't think every company needs or should want a community, because you don't turn a community on when it suits you and then turn it off when it doesn't. And if you are going to have a community, you need to be committed to the long-term kind of, investment that means, because, like I say, people start to associate with a brand and they start to build equity in it in their mind, and then they have expectations of that brand. And if you don't, if you've set up a community, then you need to fulfill those expectations or alter those expectations forever. You can't just shut it down. And we talked about Microsoft, earlier. They've shut down a few different things that have really upset people, and over the long term, I'm sure that will ultimately affect them. But a really good example for me of a company that's sort of created something like this that has then leveraged it into a bigger thing is a company called Allbirds. And they were started because the founder was a rugby player. So he used to travel a lot. So they would go on tour for like 4 months. So he'd be living out of a bag. And when you're living out of a bag, what you put in your bag becomes very important to you. So you're like, well, I don't want to have 5 pairs of shoes so that I can wear something to practice in the morning, go to lunch in a different pair and then take something out. So he was like, I want a sneaker that can sort of fulfill all of these needs that inspire, that still looks good and still works practically in those environments. And then in his off season, because he was a rugby player, he got like 3-4 months a year when it was winter and they basically go, well, just sit and do nothing. So he was like, well, let me make my own shoe. And he went to China and he started engaging there. And he was sort of shocked at how a toxic shoemaking ultimately is, the glues and the dyes and the materials and all that stuff. It's just like, it's not a great industry for the planet. So he came back to New Zealand and he was like, well, let me see if I can do a better job. And Allbirds as a company is based around this idea of the shoe that's got these multiple uses, but they've also invented their own materials. So they've taken merino wool and they've turned it into a leather-like product. They've created glues from eucalyptus trees. They've found bark from one process and turned it into their laces. So they've the DNA of this company is a really interesting thing. And obviously there's a group of humans who that appeals to massively, and they've created this community of kind of people who are kind of think about the planet and think about the materials of what they're buying. And this is sort of formed around this brand. But now Adidas is trying to borrow from that. So now Adidas and Allbirds are doing a collaboration because Adidas has seen that Allbirds has achieved something that they want to do. So they want to move into this kind of new future and this new sustainability. And it'll be interesting to see how the community of Allbirds sort of reacts to them taking the step that suits the business, because, you know, doing a collaboration with Adidas is the best thing for the business. You know, and it'll expand their audience and it'll make them global and all of these kind of things, which are amazing. But that core audience might hate it. So as a brand, they need to be careful with those people who love them for who they are, and they need to communicate that decision they've made in a way that kind of, you know, those people don't end up turning on them. Because what could happen, you know, in one scenario, those people buy into it and they go along for the journey and it's great for Allbirds. In the other one, those people abandon Allbirds. Adidas will use them for as long as they need them and then move on to the next thing that they are doing. And Allbirds will try and return to its original community and find no one there anymore because everyone's kind of walked away and said, this is not sort of interesting. So if you are going to go for a community, know that it comes with great reward, but also great cost. Because if he didn't have that community, he could just do whatever he wanted. He's like, this is the best thing for my business, so I'm going to do it. And nobody, you know, like there isn't anybody around who's going to be kind of vehemently opposed to this because nobody cares about us to that sort of level. But I
love that conversation. And it's one of those things that you can think about all kinds of different products, different audiences, different ways to communicate. I just want to make sure that people know how to connect with you, Ross, before we take off. So I know that we have, let me bring this up. If you want to connect with Ross, we got a way up here we talk about Ross Drakes. And you also are a speaker and you're giving presentations out on a regular basis as often as you're able. I'm not sure how your local situation is there for getting out in public, but it differs around the world. So, but also your company mention your company again.
So my company is called Nicework.
Nicework.
Yeah.
I like that.
So if you go to Nicework,
it has kind of like a branding thing to it. Nice work.
Yeah. and there's a trick there because essentially we are promising only nice work. So, you know, I'm not saying great work or outstanding work. So we can promise low and over deliver every single time. So that's the thought behind it.
Well, this is great. I love the fact that we can actually highlight people. I wanted to. Elise is down in your neck of the woods. She's in South Africa. She comes on the show on a regular basis. I've got some great connections here. Wendy is on the show. Good morning, Ross and Russ. A grand example of bearded pirates who exemplify kindness is cool and provides lots of free smiles. And that's the whole thing about the pirate broadcast is kindness is cool and smiles are free. That's the brand, and that's the message that I want to make sure that we share out. She also goes on to say, brands whose fans that make that epic impact on each other. Harley Davidson, Peloton, Coke, who else? I mean, the list goes on and on. So we could talk about this. And as a selfish side note, I really, I really like the idea of building out, the pirate broadcast and the pirate syndicate. I hopefully your experience getting on was easy access. It didn't create any problems for you, and the notifications followed up, and signing up for the pirate broadcast was okay. So that's what the pirate syndicate does, and that's what we do for other organizations, is help them organize that and get them online as well. So it's just
I love what you're talking about there, and it's actually something I sent you back an email when we first connected. I mean, I love that concept of kindness is cool and smiles are free. So for me, that's almost your rallying call. That's what you exist to deliver, and you're going to attract people who like that. You're going to attract people who, when they see that, they go, I like that. And what you've done there, which is, I think, that kind of newer companies are more comfortable doing, is you've drawn a line in the sand. You've said, this is what I stand for.
Yeah.
This is what's important to me. And if you like that, come and join me on this side of the line. And if you don't, that's also fine.
Yeah.
You're just not my people.
Yeah.
You're not my people. We're not going to work together. We're not going to engage with each other. I mean, we'll have a coffee, but it's not like we're going to have you on this platform. And I think, once again, there's something there for companies. It's like, who are you for and who are you not for?
Yeah.
Like, and that is so important, because I think saying who you say no to is almost as important as who you say yes to, because that's what defines how you behave in the world, how you show up, how you serve people, how you create products, how you talk about what you do, how you find people, how other people will share you. There's that amazing saying, like, do you want to be someone's favorite or their regular? And I think that's different, because you go to your favorite restaurant once every now and again, but there are products and there's brands that you invite into your world that you use all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer to this, but I think being intentional about it and thinking about what's important to you as the founder of the business and what's important to the people that you serve, and building around that is what makes things that make the world better. And this is why I do this work, is I'm a selfish human. I want to live in a world where brands and companies are doing things that are making the world around me better, even if it's not for me. Like, I think the day and age of these like tone deaf brands that are just steamrolling everything is kind of ending. And there's an amazing, if you go look at the S&P 500 from 1917 to 1967 to 2017, there's only one company that made it in the top 20 all the way, and that's AT&T. But AT&T is not the same company they were in 1917 as they are today. So I think big companies feel invincible, but Nokia, who else? Kodak. Enron. Like, there's companies that go away. Like, and they do. And I think this is almost the thing. I think people need to realize that if you're not clear about what's important to you and why that matters, your brand can't exist and your company will ultimately kind of go away. And I'm not saying that companies like Microsoft are going to go away, but if they don't catch a wake-up call, people can come along and steal away a lot in a very, very, very short period of time. And that doesn't necessarily carry you forever. Look at Facebook has gone in sort of 5-6 years from being the company that everyone loved to now the thing that people kind of use begrudgingly because, like, it's there, but if there was a better alternative, I'm sure a whole bunch of people would flock off.
There's always going to be another alternative coming up.
Exactly.
Attempting to attack the big dog on the block.
And then you look at a brand. I mean, Harley Davidson was measured earlier. I love it. It's not a brand for me. I will never buy a Harley Davidson. But when I look at how they've built something that people love, that people spend like tens of thousands of dollars on tassels for their handles, because it's not just a tassel. It's they are building out an extension of who they are as a person. And that extension says, this is who I am. This is the community that I belong to. This is what's important to me. These are all of the things that I believe about the world. Those tassels kind of embrace that. And Harley Davidson truly, truly, truly gets that. Like, people have tattooed Harley Davidson across their body, like, massively. It's insane. But they do it anyway.
They do have some fans. Well, Ross, it's been amazing. I love this conversation. I'd love to have you back on the Pirate Broadcast. Anytime you're a pirate, you're always welcome back. And also, I just want to remind everybody that, go out, connect with Ross. We got to wrap it up today, but I know that you're available on LinkedIn. You have a LinkedIn profile. So just tell Ross you're a pirate. you can make a connection, start these conversations, build the community, because we can, there's the pie never runs out. We can always collaborate and have a great time and a great conversation. So thank you so much for being here, Ross. I really appreciate you being here.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for the work that you do. I think you are the person who's connecting and curating and pulling all the stuff together. So thank you very much for your platform and for your time.
You bet. And as always, everyone, kindness is cool. Smiles are free. So you enjoy the day. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining the Pirate Broadcast. If you found this content valuable, please like, comment, and share it across your social media channels. I would love the opportunity to help others grow in their business. The Pirate Syndicate is a platform where you show up, we produce the show. It's that easy. If you want to be seen, be heard, and be talked about, join the Pirate